Will it work?
Okay.
Gigabytes. Okay, there we go. Let's. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest edition of the world's finest, soon to be finest, always will be finest podcast. This is just two guys having a chat this evening about 2025. What's happened, what's going to happen, what could happen. We'll see as it goes along. And let me just get control of this. There we go. Oh, don't hear my voice twice. There we go. Right, so, but before we begin, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce my co-host. Obviously, my name is CJ, and I'm joined today by the almighty Tony Camano. How are you, buddy? You all right?
Yeah, not bad, mate. Good, good.
I know 2025 has been tough. It has been tough, but we've made it through this far. Now, let's just a quick chat about 2025 and how it's gone. We'll be back in the future with more shows. I promise more worked out shows where I'll have a script and all the rest of it. But today we're just waxing lyrical. Quick test to see how this all works on my new setup. And Tony's gladly volunteered to put himself in the headlights of discussion. So we were talking before the show, like a lot of stuff's happened since a lot of stuff's happened since we started the new establishment, but a lot of stuff's happened since we did our last full-on podcast. And so as the year goes on, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. But I figured I'd go over what the issues are that people are talking about over 2025 that I've seen across social media and just ask Tony what he's seen about what people are discussing. Because what's happening isn't necessarily what people are talking about. And not every people disagree about a lot of stuff, but I find it interesting what the how the press are covering stuff, how people are talking about things, and how people feel about stuff, and about how basically effectively with Trump's victory, people are talking about it's the end of DEI and the end of this and the end of that, and I'm like, is it really though? I mean, like, people don't understand that the United States isn't like the United Kingdom. You can proclaim stuff, like Trump's proclaimed a lot of stuff, but you can't actually, like, if he said it's the end, it's not. Because if a state goes, well, we're not doing that, well, we're doing it our way, or California goes, we're doing it our way, or Alabama, who have always done things their way, or Texas. So it's not like do whatever he wants. He could do stuff on a federal level, but not necessarily on a local level, which as I go forward, I find quite interesting. Now, and the effect it has worldwide. I've never seen a situation like this, and I don't know how you feel about it, TC, where the press are fawning. Like there just seems to be you either love Trump or you don't. There's no middle ground reporting on him. There's no like even what used to be some of the most intellectual or or I don't know, almost more thoughtful papers are no longer that. Like the Telegraph, um, Daily Mail. It's like whatever happens on the right, we're all for. Whatever happens on the left, we're against. And I, I've never seen anything like that before. And maybe it's because we've got more media than we've had. That it seems quite strange, but it just seems to be we're in a really weird situation at the moment, and it just feels like people in general are overwhelmed. But one thing that I like take this issue like the trans issue. The trans issue seems to have divided people more than anything ever has. And I find it strange because it's like trans people aren't new to this world. They've been around for a long time. And I realize people may not be comfortable with the issue
Mm.
and people may not like discussing it. But surely for the sake of families and people whose kids do come to them and go, I am this way, I feel this way,
Mm.
I would have thought the discussion had moved on. But why do you think that issue alone seems to be have galvanized the right in a way that it hadn't in the past? because the obsession and the amount of people who very much like, let's say, who's the Harry Potter writer?
J.K. Rowling.
J.K. Rowling. She was very much considered liberal. She was very much considered to be on the left of politics in terms of her approach to her writing, who she hung out with, all those types of things. Now she's very much. She said no matter what, she will not support any party or group that supports trans people. And there's a lot of people out there like that. And they're only too willing to let you know what they think. They don't say so immediately,
Yeah.
but they're only too willing to say what they think. And I know it's an uncomfortable subject, but that's one of the issues that seems to come up a lot. And people seem that that affects them more than whatever Trump's doing. Another issue that comes up, we can all go over these in a moment, but foreigners, any type of foreigner, the discussion has become a lot less nuanced, and people seem to be only too willing to believe the conspiracy theories and the negatives about foreigners, whether they're illegal or otherwise. There's so much social media out there. I don't like as a black man, I notice it a lot, and I don't expect everybody else to notice it, but I've noticed a lot more of it in mainstream social media. I remember, so you're seeing a lot more videos of people of color doing things illegal that you might see anybody and people going, it's the usual suspects.
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot more black people being accused of being racist than I ever have. Like that used to be stuff that people would say in a pub maybe, or like,
Yeah.
oh, black people, blah, blah, blah. But now it's coming into mainstream media a lot more. They got very upset when I think there was an athlete list last week who was videoed or recorded calling a police officer a white something, and they judged her off or whatever, and the press, like everybody, was like, "Oh, she's racist. How did she get away with that?" As opposed to the usual free speech calls they make. Um, so I'm very much like that seems to be an issue that stands out for people. Pedophiles, and the idea that the left is covering for them seems to be another issue. Child trafficking, pedophiles, Islam, Sharia law, all these things seem to be issues that aren't real issues. Like Sharia law, as it's practiced in the UK, it needs like everybody involved needs to be agreed that they're using it, and
Right.
it's not legally binding. Like there's no.
Yeah, because we have our own
It's
laws.
kind of like was it like you have it in like Jewish people do it as well, and a few other groups. You get together in a room and go, you're going to divide this, you're going to do this, you can do that, especially if it's divorce or anything like that. But anything to do with Muslims, that's divisionary. Like you're not allowed, and it's amazing how many people take a stance on it based on their religion. So a lot of Christians will be anti-Islam, a lot of Sikhs will be anti-Islam, um, a lot of Indian people will be anti-Islam.
Hindus,
The
Sikhs.
other thing that seems to be getting people wild, and I don't get it, is the birth rate in the UK. We're closing schools in the UK. Um, we've got a low birth rate in the UK, but they seem to not want immigrants unless they
And we
come
have
from
we
certain
have done
places.
since the
And
mid
even then,
curse. We've had a low birth rate since the 1970s. So
mm,
the indigenous British population has not replaced itself man for man or woman, however which way you want to do it, since like
yeah,
1972, 1975. So that's not
mm.
new, you know.
And what else is there? And that I think those are the big issues. Have you noticed any like as opposed to the economy, like what the issues are up where you are, or down where you are, downwards?
Well, number one, I got rid of social media, so I don't have
Mm,
Facebook or Instagram or anything now. I just got rid of all of it. Don't really need
yeah,
it. Um, I noticed I noticed after Trump was elected that all the posts on it on my and YouTube as well, they all slightly
yeah.
became a little bit more right wing and a little bit more, as you said, not usual suspects, but I suppose in a way more hillbilly like. Um, and a lot more Russian
Mm,
stuff was coming up on my whether that's like UFC fighting or more Joe Rogan or weird things about Russian wrestlers taking on like some other athlete and being better than them, just weird stuff like that. So I've just got rid of a lot. I think the main problem, Curtis, it comes around with the advent of smartphones and social media in a proper sense, and since 2010, and then we've slowly seen the fruition,
Mm,
is that um, smartphones and what's it called, social media, has been used as a platform to sow seeds of division within our society, within Western society.
effectively, yeah.
And that's the main reason. I mean, the main
Mm,
reason we jump on bandwagons. I mean, that's why I got rid of the bloody thing. I'm not trying to jump on any bandwagon, I'm just trying to meet people. Is that one? There are issues in life. You know, there are pedophiles. There is child trafficking. The only problem with all the stuff it's used to
mm,
vilify a group. So these things do happen, but they're not necessarily lefty liberals, and they're not necessarily just. I'm not saying that there aren't Muslims that obviously we had a case here in the UK like 10, 15 years ago, which was dealt with and then was made a big fuss
mm,
by the Americans by Elon Musk. But this does happen, and when you start just blaming certain groups, then you stop looking in other places, and it's all about division, and it's all about
mm.
separating us. And if I know that the Russians ran a campaign, a disinformation campaign, using multimedia, using other assets to basically seed discord within communities with social media.
They did in the United States,
Yeah,
yes, indeed.
yeah, and they probably did it here,
And
Curtis.
I'm sure in the UK, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, probably
That's
did it
another
here.
thing they got rid of in the United States.
Yeah,
The group that looks at that has now been disbanded.
of course they have. Of course they have. Because why would you want that? Why, when it's working for you and you're in power, why would you want it to be disbanded? So look, we're in a bit
Yeah.
of a rut, and unless we've got a government that takes the bull by the horns, and I'm a little bit disappointed in this Labour government for just seeming not to really do anything. Um, Although the intentions might be good, nothing's really happening unless we have governments that are willing to stand up to these multi-billionaires and their platforms. Then we're headed on a very dark road. And I know you see it more positively than I
No,
do.
I agree. No, no, I agree with you I agree to a degree. Come on. I would add though, like I said before, that the Americans do have systems in place to deal with this sort of thing, and whether or not this is a test, essentially what's going on is a test of how effective it is. In the UK, we don't because we don't have as much of a democracy as we presume we do.
Yeah,
And we've also got a really weird situation where, you know, reform are being treated like revolutionaries and they're not actually going to change much for anybody except themselves.
yeah, exactly right. They'll do what Trump's
And
doing.
there's the amount of information, yeah, the amount of misinformation out there is shocking. Like, I have, and it's always small things to start with. Um, Whether it's I had an argument with someone about in the run up to the election in the United States, there were lots of celebrities involved with Camilla Harris's campaign.
Yeah,
Somebody put a story out there that they paid tens of millions to people like Oprah, Beyonce to turn up. Like they didn't turn up with their own free will to go, hey, vote
yeah, yeah.
Camilla.
They would have been rather at the Donald Trump rally.
And that report was proven untrue. There were no payments made. Oprah organized their events. Obviously, a company took payment for organizing the events.
Yeah,
But outside of that, there was no, and she donated a lot more money than the organization got paid.
yeah,
And Beyonce definitely didn't like get paid millions to turn up at all. But yeah, this story was put out there. You speak to these people and they're like, no, it happened, and you tell them no, it didn't. There's no evidence at all. What there was an email, it was fake.
yeah. But
I
no,
just,
no.
and it's like there's no route round with this sort of thing. But as I keep saying, reality is a friend of mine, and you can lie, 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 but at some point, the rock hits the road. You you can't say to people, "We'll make your lives better if you do this." They do it, and then their lives don't get better. It was the mistake the Democrats made. It wasn't about him being a Nazi. It wasn't because remember the Democrats didn't lose because he got more votes than he did the last time.
I just
What
need to
happened
come
was
out.
the Democrats didn't turn up.
Yeah,
Yeah. And a lot of men, and it's always the men,
Yeah,
decided they were going to vote for Trump. And although a lot of people are taking laughing at the large population of people who are getting kicked out of the United States now because they voted Trump
yeah,
or their partners voted Trump,
yeah.
I've got nothing but sympathy for them because they, as always, they were lied to, and I can't be happy about people suffering because they were lied to about it. So I do think that things are going to stall, and not on a local level, because again, as much as Trump has got support and all these crazies around him willing to do his bidding, the states aren't going to want to lose money, and it's the Republican states that aren't going to lose money. And the moment they try and gerrymander it like they did in the UK, that's when they're in real serious trouble.
Yeah,
Because that's when states like California go, well, if you're doing that and we're not giving you money from us,
yeah,
why should we give you money?
yeah.
Um, but we'll see. You know, there's a lot of double dealing going on. There's a lot of corruption going on, and it'll be interesting to see if judges, first of all, stand up to them, or get railroaded,
But
and it'll be interesting to see if Elon doesn't end up in prison. I'm putting
the thing
money
is
on
that
it.
they've already
Elon's going to
said
be in
that.
prison. He's
I
already
think.
breaking the law.
Well, I think they don't care if they're breaking the law. I think this thing that Vance said about JD Vance said about if the president said it's right, it's not illegal. The president can do whatever he wants, and if anybody tries to stop him,
Mm,
they're committing a crime, which is, let's face it, that's fascism. That's a hostile takeover. That's a
yeah,
coup.
yeah.
That's a banana
But
republic.
that's why they keep talking about freedom of speech.
Yeah.
They keep talking about freedom of speech, and what's Trump done? He's targeted everybody who stood up against him
Yeah.
since he got back in power. He's going after people that stood up in defiance of him.
And this is the
But
thing
yet
is
they keep
now
saying freedom of speech, but yet they want to restrict everybody else's.
that's right. And now Biden's pardons, the preemptive pardons, don't seem that he's let himself down. If anything, he's done the right thing, which is odd,
Mm.
isn't it? Because it was basically admitting like now Trump can do that to himself and stuff like that. It's just it beggars belief that a man who tried to incite the end of democracy in his last term has now through through a majority become the leader, the biggest leader of the world again. You know what I mean? The most powerful leader in the world.
Well, he's a conspiracy theory president. I think
Yeah.
he started off with conspiracy theory. He built conspiracy theory into a tool. And as much as the Russians played a part, I think the American people played a bigger part
Oh
because
yeah, they
those
did.
people who made the money out of conspiracy theory, Alex Jones, all those
Fox
types of
News.
people who made a lot of money out of conspiracy theory, JFK Jr., uh, a man who like is so unhealthy. I don't know how he gets up every day, but. Um, this is the sort of thing that I think all the things that they're doing is, like I said, are based on conspiracy.
Yeah.
They're not based on reality. And the problem with conspiracy theories is that they do a lot of damage. So when JFK goes, "I want to make America healthier," who doesn't? Who in the administration of the American Health Department didn't want people healthier? What hindered them was big business.
Yeah.
What hindered them was corporations
Lobby groups.
because corporations would get involved and lobby and eventually get pizza put on as one of the healthy choices you can go for. So again, I think the way they keep talking about what they're going to do is great. It's fantastic, but it's conspiracy. Releasing the documents on JFK's assassination aren't going to change any bit of information out there about JFK's assassination. It might put more out there in terms of how far the investigation went and the people that were involved, but it won't change much outside of that. Epstein's books. Again, I keep saying this to people like Epstein and Jimmy Savile and all the rest of it. Yeah, conspiracy theories always build up around them that more people were involved in the abuse and all the rest of it, and more people were involved. But it's very unlikely a lot of them were celebrities, and I say this solely because what Epstein's aim was to surround himself with celebrities so he could do what he wanted to do.
Mm.
The second you involve people in it, you quickly end up in trouble. And he did find a useful idiot like in Prince Andrew, who even after the man was being accused and being charged, was opening his door for him.
Mm.
Like he'd do like wow. But I'll say this and I'll keep saying this. Your conspiracy theories are great to a degree, but the reality is that if you honestly believe that chemtrails were killing people and that Trump was going to stop chemtrails, what happens now? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you honestly believe that the environment is a whole big con, even though there's so much evidence to say that the damage that we're doing to the environment is fundamental and irreversible, what happens now? You get more fuel out. What happens then? You know, and it's like it's weird. We're living in a weird world at the moment. But I do believe that the economic damage of what Trump's going to do is going to work against him. Whether or not it's enough, because it's a cult at the moment, and he got so many more voters than any other Republicans gotten.
Mm.
It's going to be interesting to see if the Democrats can outperform him, and especially as what are they going to do now as well, Tone? They're going to keep removing people and stopping them from being able to vote.
They
They're going
won't
to
need
hinder
to
their
vote
ability to vote.
first. They won't need to vote in 4 years
Yeah.
because, or 5 years because, King Trump can't be deselected. He'll be like the president for life,
Mm.
however long that may be.
But we'll
Hopefully not
see.
too long.
I mean, he's already. I think the 10%. No, I think it's gonna be interesting. The next 6 months are gonna be very interesting. If he can get through the next 6 months without causing huge economic damage, he might make it. But I just don't see it. I don't see where this amount of crazy works. They keep using the guy from Argentina
Oh yeah,
as
I
an
know.
example.
Like,
Do you know about him?
yeah, what the one who went to Bitcoin, he became like
Um,
far right leader. I can't remember his name.
yeah, they keep holding what. Yeah, so what he's doing, like this again, Elon Musk gets credit for the whole. Let me go through the government and sort all this stuff out. When in reality, he's not half as clever as he thinks he is. And actually, life in Argentina hasn't improved, it's gotten worse.
Yeah,
But what may work for him is they cut so much of the government budget because next week they're doing a military budget, which we all know is like 9 times as much
right. Yeah.
as any other country in the world. Um,
Well,
if
Argentina.
they're able to cut so much of that budget, no, UK.
Oh yeah.
No, Argentina's already cut. I think he cut like 40% of government.
Right.
Um, and it still hasn't worked out well for them. So if they cut so much of the US military budget that they're able to like go, well, look at this, we can cut taxes, we can do this and do whatever. The only problem is that a lot of the US budget goes towards states, red states in particular.
Yeah.
But let's say they're building new ship parts. Well, Texas can have that, or Florida can have that. We're building new tanks, Texas. We're building new airplanes, Alabama.
Yeah.
So those jobs are going to be lost. So once those jobs are lost, what happens then? So I think Miele, that's the guy's name, President Javier Miele. He's in trouble now because he promoted a cryptocurrency that lost almost half of all its value.
Yeah.
So yeah, these guys talk a good game, but they don't actually know what they're doing, and neither does Elon Musk. He's very good at pretending that he knows what he's doing, but he's not because he's doing is what Democrats have been trying to do for ages, and that's cut military budgets and all the rest of that. He's just coming in and he's doing it, but he's doing it like an imbecilic child. The man's absolutely he's that classic South African that I've never liked. And quite honestly, I think it's hilarious that the Americans have allowed this, of all the foreigners you can allow to come into your country, that this is a foreigner you're allowed.
Yeah.
And he's going to absolutely wreck your economy. And yeah, it says a lot that did you hear that they're granting asylum to Afrikaans? in
From
the
what?
States. They signed a law. He
Asylum
signed a
from what?
document saying that Afrikaans, again, you like a good conspiracy theory? I've got one for you here.
From what, Kurt?
Obviously, South Africa's got a very a big crime rate. It's got a very, very expansive crime rate. One of those is farm raids. Now, what people seem to not realize is that when a farm raid happens, the vast majority of workers from that farm are black.
Yeah,
They are the biggest victims of farm raids. But when the white farmer dies, it's like they're under siege. The Afrikaans like to play out the big victims. So that's the story that comes out of South Africa, that Afrikaan farmers, especially the Volhavens, the Dutch
yeah.
South Africans are being targeted. But the fact they own, what, 90% of the land, that's got nothing to do with it. So they've granted them asylum from that. But
But they won't be
obviously, very
using it.
few of them
I
are
mean,
taking
that's
it because,
ridiculous.
as much as Afrikaans hate, hmm?
They won't use it.
Well, why would they leave South Africa?
What was
Like,
that
even on
like?
a bad day in South Africa, you have so much more money and cash than like what you'd have anywhere else. I know so many British people who still holiday in South
So I,
Africa, even though it has a crime rate or whatever, because they have a great time out there.
yeah, it's cheap
And
as
they did it
chips.
during apartheid too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So why would they leave? And it makes me absolutely hilarious that they passed a law like that, but they're the only foreigners that are allowed to come to
Well, the ones that won't come.
the United States. Yeah, and it goes back to my idea that this is racist Christian nationalists in government. This is the CIA. Oh my God, Christians in action, as I like to call them,
Yeah,
of politics that is going on here, and it's got nothing to do. It was never about saving the Western world. It was always about putting Christian nationalists in power and allow them to run riot. Because in a few years' time, there will be very little difference between Iran and the United States, or say that Russia and the United States.
that's the
The
model they're
very
going
fact that
for.
they're willing to capitulate to Putin, that the very fact that they're willing to capitulate to Putin should tell you everything you need to know. And JD Vance, the Vice President of the United States, comes over here and doesn't talk about the fact that Putin's willing to invade and attack democratic countries, but freedom of speech, bruh. Your freedom of speech is
Yeah.
under attack. That should tell you something. Um, yeah, I'm just but I am positive about the future. I think at the end of the day, you can be as mean or talk as mean and talk as nasty about Muslims, people of color, and all the rest of it, all this type of stuff as much as you want. But the reality is, it's about economics. And Trump hasn't had a business that succeeded. Trump's a bad businessman. Elon Musk is even worse, as far as I'm concerned. Not in terms of business failure, but he hates unions. He hates workers' rights. He hates individual people, people of color. I know he hates people of color. Um, and he's an imbecile. So I think all these things is it's like a beautiful storm. And if you don't believe me, ladies and gentlemen, tone evidence of this. Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson rolled in on one of the highest, biggest turnouts for a prime minister ever. Absolutely devastated the Labour Party. Where is he now? And I think it's exactly the same thing. I think he tried to promote a certain type of Christian nationalist, even though he's not. I don't believe he's very Christian in any way, shape, or form, except he has lots of kids. And I think at the end of the day, he went out. Like you can fool some of the people some of the time, but not all the people all the time. And I think they'll ultimately fail.
Well, the other one is Russia Ukraine. Uh, Putin and Russia were going to invade
Mm,
Ukraine, and they were going to conquer it in 2 days because the Ukrainian people wanted them there. What are we 3 years later?
mm,
3 years
yeah,
later, and everybody's taking losses. And I think
mm,
Russia need the war to end because sooner or later they're gonna their economy's struggling. They're on a war footing, but they're struggling. You know,
yeah. I think what Ukraine needs to do now is I don't know. I really don't, because they're in the most unfortunate situation ever, and it just reminds me of what happened to Poland after World War II.
yep.
Uh, we went to war over Poland, and then we pretty much let Poland go by the end of that war. And I know it's because people were tired of fighting and all the rest of it. But that is one thing I think I would have been like, no, you can't. No, not Poland. And I don't think Ukraine deserves it. And I'd rather talk about that any day of the week than Trump. But unfortunately, that's where we are. So, ladies and gentlemen, as we move forward through the year, we'll be discussing these subjects and issues. And I promise you, you will leave our podcast with hope for the future because it is there. It just needs to come together. People need to come together and start talking about stuff. We've been in the corners in the dark for so long now because COVID happened and all the rest of it. But when stupid ideas come into the light, as I always say, the stupid ones always burn away. And I'm very positive about that. I don't think people want to go back in time. I think people want better lives, and the best they had in their heads is back there, but it can be better in the future. And it doesn't have to mean you have to sell out to Christian nationalists whose only real aim is to make sure that you go to church and that's it. There's more to life than that. And if Joan Roddenberry taught us anything, it's that humankind and mankind can do better. So I sincerely believe that. I sincerely believe the global frequency will start getting you talking as we move forward through this year. It's a big year for me as I'm approaching, and a few of my friends are approaching that time as
Yeah.
well. So let's just roll out, and we'll give you ideas of how you can make that happen. But I'm extremely positive that if we acknowledge that something's wrong and then we work towards it, we can make this world a better place. And all it takes is a few people having an honest and open discussion, not in a who's that guy Rogan sort of way, where you'll just talk for hours about shit you don't know about. But we'll get there. We'll get to the point where we can discuss ideas and actually get to the point of going, well, no, chemtrails are bollocks.
Yeah.
They just aren't.
The earth is round.
The flat earth does, these aren't things we have to tolerate and we can do it. But for that, ladies and gentlemen, join us down the road for the next episode of the Global Frequency. We'll be back more often. I promise. I'm getting into my swing. I'm coming back for you, ladies and gents. But we'll be back for more. TC, you up for it? You up for an adventure
No,
this
no, I'm
year?
up for it. I'm up for it. I'm not as positive as you are, but yeah, I'm up for it. Doom and gloom,
We'll
mate.
get
Doom and
you there.
gloom.
We'll get you there, TC, man.
Yeah.
We'll get you there. The House of Francois will never give up. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, you have a nice night. Please like, share, come to us some more, and we'll show you some love. And yes, have a lovely week. We'll be
Good night.
back soon for more. This was the Global Frequency. My name is CJ.
Good night. My name is Tony. See you later.